Hi everyone, I hope you're doing okay. Today's video is about The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Returning to The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword some 10 whole years down the line from its original release, you may be expecting, as I certainly was, to be greeted by a core game that's unavoidably, naturally beginning to show its age in some regards. It stands to reason this is an entry in Nintendo's storied franchise that had been detractors from the let-go criticized for its sometimes unreliable motion controls, its fractured overworld, intrusive sidekick, pacing, and some late-game repetition. Surely by now, these issues, these rough edges, have been exacerbated and even added to by the natural progression of time. Well, whether or not any of that might have been the case seems quite besides the point now. With this HD remaster, Nintendo has taken its gust below to a layer of junk that, in hindsight, stood between players and the true promise, the full potential of this masterpiece. The raft of tweaks, changes, and updates dripped fed to it the month leading up to Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD release may not have seemed all that exciting on paper. This isn't some ground-up makeup, and this no new content or notable changes to how things unfold, but together they give the underlying game where a whole new release of life. This HD remaster feels like now we've meant This HD remaster feels like now we were meant to originally experience this adventure, the connection between the game's world and the player now unimpeded. Let's start with those technical changes. The motion controls here, such as diversive elements of the original release in this game, now perform so much closer to the way we dreamed they might back in 2011. Tight, responsive, and absolutely up to the task in the most frantic of mob battles and boss fights. They may not quite manage the flawless one-play sword, but was taught back in the day, but boy, do they come close. Engaging in combat in The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD feels fluid, your sword swipes and shield actions responding accurately to your commands and enabling you to properly relax, to feel confident that the inputs you make whilst playing with motion controls will now translate onto the screen. I was impressed with this game's combat back in 2011, but there was no doubt it could prove hugely frustrating when a thrust of cut failed at some critical moment, when your shield refused to parry an attack, or a skyward strike refused to charge. All of these issues are, for the most part, banished here. In terms of the all-new button controls, although they don't quite match up to the feeling of immersion you get from swinging and flicking your Joy-Con as you batter bokoblins and slice and dice Deku Babas, they still feel remarkably good and enable Switch Lite and portable players to fully enjoy this experience in handheld mode. Controlling your sword by flicking the right stick works wonderfully well here, and in situations where the sword skills are really put to the test, such as those exacting face-offs against Grihahim, they prove to be accurate and responsive enough to avoid almost any frustrations. There is still the odd time where a slash doesn't quite line itself up, where you need to thrust for a second time to get the required response, but in comparison to the original game's motion controls, the difference in precision is truly noticeable. The raft of the quality of light changes that have been introduced here combined with these revamped controls for a much more modern feeling, streamlined and enjoyable experience. The new autosave feature that records your progress on the fly, the introduction of multiple save slots, removal of repetitive item descriptions, ability to skip cutscenes and speed up text. Nothing here is groundbreaking. It's a stuff that perhaps should have been included from the get-go, but it nevertheless transformative to the flow of this 10-year-old game. The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD introduces a raft of technical improvements and quality of life updates that reinvigorate and revitalize this 10-year-old game. With motion controls more precise than even more, an alternate button control scheme that totally works, crisp HD graphics, smooth 60 FPS gameplay, and bothersome sidekick who's been streamlined into something altogether more useful. This really does feel like Skyward Sword, and it was meant to be experienced. Yes, the locking off instant travel behind the official amiibo is misstep. But beyond this one issue, what's here is a stumble experience, a technical triumph and the absolute must-play for Switch owners and Zelda fans. So this brings me to the end of our small review. I was happy to make this, guys, for you. I will enjoy if you put your comments down below and put thumbs up. Thank you for your attention, and I'll see you next video.